talk to the White House about that right now. Let's welcome Abigail Jackson to the Annie Frey Show, White House Deputy Press Secretary. J.D. Vance, Vice President, Abigail, talking about this administration's clear-eyed focus on keeping the border secure. And honestly, they're saying that it's a moral cause. It's not just a policy. Abigail, what are your thoughts on what the Vice President had to say there?
Hey, Annie, great to be with you this afternoon. And I think the Vice President really hit the nail on the head there when he was talking about the importance of a secure border. And this is some commentary that you've heard border czar Tom Homan make repeatedly as well, that an open border is not just dangerous for the American people, but it's dangerous for the individuals who are crossing the border, oftentimes who are being illegally smuggled across the border, who are paying cartels to bring them across the border, who are putting themselves at risk, who are putting others at risk. And so a secure border isn't just the safest option for the American people, but it is also the safest option for illegal aliens who have been taken advantage of by cartels. Think of the children in the Biden administration who were smuggled across the border and then went missing. And so a secure border is in the best interest of everyone.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Abigail Jackson with the White House speaking with us right now. It's interesting to me that at least the secure border, it's such an obvious duh that you don't even really hear Democrats politically pushing back on that issue specifically at this point, because it's so obvious that Americans want a secure border. And that was a leading issue as to why President Trump is President Trump in his second term, is because he made that commitment and the left hasn't. But the left often tries to mix messages when you talk about the people who are still here, that the president has committed to saying, if you came here illegally, you're going to be deported. There's a way to come here legally, and we're going to encourage that. How do you feel as though this administration is going to continue that resolve where the political lines get a little bit blurred on how people feel, that kind of hard on their sleeve element that the Democrats try to lean heavily on when they're making their case?
Well, I think you're absolutely right that Democrats don't talk about the border anymore, and there's a reason they don't do so, and it's because President Trump secured it in record time and has kept it secure. We just hit 11 months of zero releases into the country. That is a monumental accomplishment that, if you recall, before the election, Democrats said they needed new legislation to accomplish that, and the president came in and proved them all wrong. In terms of who is still left in the country, because we had such a porous border for so long under the Biden administration, there are thousands upon thousands of dangerous criminal illegal aliens who are still here. And the president has made very clear that criminal illegal aliens, the worst of the worst, those with additional convictions, ranging from everything from DUIs, driving under the influence, because, those illegal aliens kill American citizens when they're driving on the streets, ranging all the way from DUIs up to murderers, kidnappers, traffickers. Those are the president's top priorities. But I want to be clear that that doesn't mean that anyone else who's come here illegally is off the table. Absolutely not. Everyone who is in the country illegally is able to be deported and will be deported. We are prioritizing threats to public safety, but overall, the administration and the president remains committed to keeping his promise to the American people, and that is to secure the border and to deport illegal aliens.
Abigail Jackson speaking with us, White House Deputy Press Secretary. You can follow her at ATJackson47 on X. One of the things that I, in my mind, always go back to, you brought up border czar Tom Homan, and it's something that he said that I think is a really important distinction to make. He said that illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. And when you look at the people who you're highlighting, the people who are out there who are actively, aggressively dangerous, they are raping people, they are murdering people, they're assaulting people. That's kind of obvious to Americans that those people need to go. But again, the political blurred line comes into other people who might not be committing those types of crimes. Are those people creating a victim or committing a victimless crime if they came here illegally and they're just trying to go along to get along?
Oh, I mean, there is no such thing as a victimless crime when it comes to illegal immigration, because to your point, let's say someone enters the country illegally, and sure, maybe they're not committing additional violent crimes and physically harming American citizens. However, in order to try and become a member of society, there is often fraud involved, identity fraud, where illegal aliens are purchasing stolen Social Security numbers and harming American citizens that way. There was actually, to give credit to the New York Times, a story a couple months back where they profiled an American citizen who had his identity stolen by an illegal alien, and he wound up owing thousands of dollars in taxes. He had all sorts of credit issues as a result of this illegal alien stealing his identity. And so things like that happen all the time. If illegal aliens aren't committing additional violent crimes, they're still committing fraud. They're stealing identity. They are, oftentimes taking jobs from American citizens when they are working illegally and for cheaper labor. So to your point, just because an illegal alien is here and is, not committing additional crimes in a way that we can physically see or that we maybe hear about on the news all the time, that doesn't mean it's victimless, and American citizens are paying the price every single day.
Abigail Jackson speaking with us with the White House. I think another thing that really has a lot of people leaning in heavily to the illegal immigration situation here, but also people who have maybe overstayed visas, a lot of different elements to then, a lot of people just think illegal immigration, they came across the southern border when Joe Biden said, come on in. But there's a lot more to our illegal immigration problem. A lot of people focusing in on Minneapolis and Minnesota and the fraud that exists there. Is part of the illegal immigration policy that is being formulated by this and carried out by this White House, does that go hand in hand with trying to root out fraud that exists right now that is stealing from the American people?
Well, if you look at, some of these fraudulent cases in places like Minnesota, like California, a lot of times they are individuals who have come to the United States from other countries, whether legally on some sort of, visa program, and then, like you said, they overstay their visa, or totally illegally and then taking advantage of programs and social safety nets meant to help American citizens. And so any way you try and square the circle, the truth doesn't change, and that is illegal immigration, no matter who is doing it, no matter who is coming to the country illegally, is hurting the American people. And this administration and President Trump made a commitment to put Americans first. And that is what the president uses as his guiding force every single day when he is looking at policy and he is making decisions. Will this put the American people first? And if it's not going to, he's not going to pursue it, and he will look for the best option to put the American people first. And that's reflected in our immigration policy. That's reflected in, the vice president's effort to crack down on fraud across the country. That's reflected in everything this administration does.
How will the American people tangibly, maybe will they, the fraud that exists in Minnesota might be different than what's in California or in my home state of Illinois. I can't wait to see what happens there. How will people, just average American tax-paying citizens, how will we be able to tell that the Trump administration has effectively made significant inroads in their efforts in these areas?
Well, I think that's a great point, that the fraud across the country is not one type of fraud. Like you said, what we're seeing in one state might not be the case in another. So really what the president has done by creating this task force led by the vice president is made it known that this is a priority for the administration. And frankly, a lot of what the task force needs to do in the short term is try and get their hands around the scope of the fraud. We have great independent journalists who are out across the country who are bringing awareness to issues and examples of fraud that the legacy media has ignored for far too long. And so the task force is looking into those examples and really just trying to understand the scope of the fraud and then creating a strategy to address it. So you and I will have to check back in a couple months on a status update and a progress of that. But the American people can rest assured that the vice president and this administration are really trying to just get our hands around it and see where the problems are and how we can correct them.
Well, I can tell you that my neighbors that live with me in the state of Illinois are salivating at somebody finally coming in and offering some checks and balances in a state like that. And I got to think California, Minnesota, that sentiment is very similar there. We just have our own brands of fraud and waste and abuse. And this administration leading the charge on that is fantastic. Abigail Jackson, thank you for being with us today. It's always good to speak with you.
Great to join you.
Take care. Bye-bye. White House Deputy Press Secretary on X at Jackson 47 or at Abigail Maroney. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Ethan will join us once again, and we'll continue to take your texts and your comments in the YouTube live chat on that poll today. Would you like the government to change its position on some substances labeled as drugs? Yes, more restrictions? Yes, less restrictions? Or no, Just leave it as it is. Go to youtube.com/@Annie Frey, Frey, and the poll is in today's live broadcast chat area, but you can text us your thoughts as well on the Annie Frey Show text line, 314-241-9797. We'll be right back.